Hello everyone! As you know, every time we run into mentions of our beloved orchids in everyday culture, we take note to make one of these videos. This week we bring you a mishmash of different media that we found with interesting mentions of orchids.
To start us off, we have an episode from the TV series Jane the Virgin. This comedy is inspired by Latin American telenovelas and uses a lot of magical realism in its storytelling. Its main character, Jane, is an American third-generation immigrant from Venezuela that dreams of being a fiction writer, but, in true telenovela style, ends up being accidentally artificially inseminated with the child of her childhood crush. After that, we have 5 seasons of twists, turns, love triangles, evil crime lords, amnesia, all the telenovela tropes, but with a lot of heart. Removing all the campiness and romantic triangles and plot twists, the show always reverts back to the relationships between Jane, her mother, and her grandmother, 3 generations of immigrant women in America. They are very close but very different women, so throughout the show we see them navigate their conflicts and generational trauma. That's very reflected in this 5th season episode. Jane's grandmother Alba becomes engaged, and Jane and her mother get very excited to plan her dream wedding. In this scene, Xiomara wants to use Cattleya mossiae for her mother's wedding, with it being the national flower of Venezuela, the family's country of origin. I love that they actually use the scientific name on the show. Now, if we look at the catalog she's consulting, those are clearly not Cattleya mossiae, just random cattleyas. A bit weird to go with a specific scientific name instead of calling it Flor de Mayo or just calling it orchid or cattleya, and then show such a clear close-up of the wrong flower. With these big shows, we see that a lot. Someone actually bothered to do some research, but then probably things get a bit lost with the prop department or the set design. Later on, for very obvious reasons, the very religious Alba decides to move up the wedding to the same afternoon, leaving her daughter scrambling to find those particular flowers, the Cattleya mossiae. I don't think it would be easy to get a specific orchid species from a common florist. Not that I usually order flowers from florists, but I would imagine they would have some random orchids in stock, maybe even Cattleya hybrids if you order ahead. But I don't think Xiomara would have any luck ordering specifically Cattleya mossiae with just 2 hours notice. And indeed, the florist is unable to get them the flowers on time. Turns out, Xiomara was fixated on getting them because she wanted to do something special to thank her mother for all she's done for her, and projected that into getting her mother the national flower of her home country she misses so much. Xiomara's obsession with getting this particular orchid was a cute device to reflect her deference of her mother despite their complicated relationship, and the longing for home that so many immigrants feel even years after moving away. I do wish we could have seen some actual orchids in the episode, though.
Our next orchid reference comes from a short story called The Orchid Grower, and it's by Katia Leaf. It's an interesting story and only about 20 pages long. We won't spoil it here since we think it's worth reading it and experiencing the twists. Don't expect anything groundbreaking and you'll have a good time. There's only one orchid mentioned, and for once the research done is actually solid. Lena, our main character, loves plants and seems to grow quite a few, but her prized possession is a carousel spider orchid, Caladenia arenicola. We're introduced to it soon in the story, when Lena tells us of a fight she had with her husband because of it. He, ridiculing the time she spends fussing over her gardens and plants, and especially her carousel spider orchid, keeping it pristine for the flower show this weekend. The press will be there, and she's been looking forward to it for a long time. The burgundy arms of Lena's Caladenia arenicola wheel toward the morning sun, its spiked lower lip curling beneath the green-edged column. Latin name and description are both spot on. They call it a carousel spider because that's just what it looks like, rotating into the light, the tiny hairs on its spidery arms illuminated. Her fingertip hovers close, but she doesn't touch. The orchid sits like a queen, enthroned in the best spot on Lena's windowsill, basking, surrounded by worthy but lesser specimens. And so is the explanation of the name. Although the hairs on the lip are much more noticeable, the petals are indeed covered in tiny hairs. Now, we personally don't agree with the whole lesser species statement, but it makes sense she would be very proud. Caladenia arenicola are terrestrial orchids native to Western Australia, and unfortunately quite rare, since they require very specific soil conditions, and Lena lives in Vermont. They have been grown successfully in captivity, so although it would be very hard, it's possible for Lena to grow it and bloom it at home. And here we have a mention of the American Orchid Society. Spider orchid blooms can be fussy, and already the first hint of an autumn chill has fallen on her garden. It's a variable time, and even a few days can make all the difference. The American Orchid Society is sending a delegate to scout for prize potential entries, having heard of Lena's specimen. It would be a lie to claim indifference about the attention she's had so little over the years. But mainly she doesn't want to let anyone down. Her state club is counting on her spectacular example of a Caladenia arenicola to represent them in the national arena. And represent them it would. Once again, really good research. The AOS gives out several awards for growing orchids, including for preservation. We don't exactly know if this would be a thing or in what circumstances, but it doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility. The next mention of this orchid is when Lena receives a visit from a German friend of her son. You'd be surprised how much effort it takes to grow an orchid like this. Actually, no. My grandfather is himself an expert in this flower. He taught me when I was a boy. This quote doesn't tell us much, but we included it just because what are the odds that the grandfather of this random boy is an expert on this rare Australian flower? Very suspicious. It's also the last mention of orchids in the book. Unfortunately, we never find out how it went with the AOS judges, and if Lena actually won something or not. Still, the story was an interesting read, and it was very refreshing to actually see some well-done research. It all makes sense, even if unlikely. Names are correct, and so are the descriptions, no insane prices mentioned. Katya Leaf gets the seal of approval.
And to finish the video, we have for you the cutest video game. Made by independent game developers Mojican Studio, She and the Lightbearer is a point-and-click game with the aesthetics of a storybook or a fairy tale. In it, you play a little Lightbearer, which is basically a firefly, traveling the forest to find and awaken Mother Nature, and save the forest from these scary, destructive creatures named the Devourers. Through his travels, the little Lightbearer meets other forest creatures that present you with puzzles and riddles to solve in order to advance in your adventures. These magical creatures are all plant-inspired, like the Supreme Lord Mushroom, the Riddle Reed, the Old Tree, and the Underground King Potato. But the first little creature we encounter is called the Orchid. And if you look at the character design, they did a really good job. You have that arching flower spike that makes orchids really recognizable. And to make them a little more anthropomorphic, they clearly drew inspiration from terrestrial orchids like the Naked Man orchid. Still, this particular orchid is clearly an epiphyte, growing on the side of that big tree. There's also the cute detail that the youngest orchid flower is clearly drawn as a little bud that hasn't quite opened yet. In the story, the little flower creatures that together make the orchid really exasperate our little firefly with jokes, secrets, puns, and little tests the Lightbearer has to pass to continue on its journey through the forest. This game is very fun if you're into point-and-click puzzles, and the story is very sweet, even poetic and emotional at times. Our little orchid makes another appearance near the end of the story, but I won't spoil it for you in case you want to play the game. And that was our video. If you have any other suggestions of orchid appearances in media, let us know in the comments. We have quite the list going already. We'd make a lot more of these videos, but they are a bit of a pain to make. YouTube is very picky with copyrighted materials, even when it clearly falls under fair use. So many times we have to upload and then edit the video again and go through this process several times. Or worse, it gets blocked days or weeks after being published. So if you do enjoy these videos, don't forget to please give them a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'll see you next week with another plant video. Goodbye.